Hello, everybody. Hello. So today we're going to talk about cybersecurity, the lightest of subject, as you can imagine, to talk at 4 p.m. after one-day conference. It's not going to be light, but it's going to be funny, and we're going to need and interesting, and we need your interaction with that because it's a round table. It's not going to be just a panel. You are quite lucky because you have 4 experts in cybersecurity and related to blockchain, so you can ask all the questions you want. I do have some questions prepared, but please interact. And I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to ask each one of you to introduce yourself very briefly so we understand who's in the room, if you don't mind, okay? Good. So I'm going to start with the lady.
Thank you very
Alexia.
much. Thank you very much, Alex. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Alexia Martinel. I work for a company which is called Nomadic Labs. Nomadic Labs is an R&D lab which is specialized on the development and the implementation of what we call the Tezos protocol. The Tezos protocol being a blockchain. So as you may know, there's not one blockchain, there are many ecosystems, and Tezos is just a different one.
Who doesn't know what blockchain is? Okay.
Great.
Okay. Who knows what blockchain is? We're the same. So yeah, they're just a shame. Come in the front, guys. Don't come in the front. Come. Don't be ashamed. Okay. Bart.
Hello, good afternoon. Bart Asnot, I'm working for Microsoft, security, tech lead, security officer, to advise our customers with regards to strategy, processes, technology in industry, but also how it's mapped within Microsoft.
Okay. So we have Microsoft. Who uses Microsoft products? Who's happy with Microsoft products? Whoa!
Thanks.
More people than... Yeah, you're using Mac, guys. Laurent, please. Can you introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Laurent Deheyer. I'm working for a company called Approach Belgium. Approach Belgium is a company specialized in cybersecurity only. So our approach is, by this name, is to have a 360-degree in cybersecurity space, so providing advisory servicing, solution integration, as well as managed security services. So we also provide managed detection and response for our customers.
Thank you. The last but not the least, Wido. Wido? Can we
say
Wido?
Okay, Wido.
Wido.
Yeah, you pronounce it like you want. So I'm Wido, working at Signicat, Director Mobile Identity. Signicat is managing your digital lifecycle cross-border. So everything from onboarding, identification, authentication to signing. And I think we are one of the biggest in Europe doing that.
Awesome. So as we, triple in number of attendance in the last 2 minutes, I'm not going to do one by one, but generally speaking, who are the consultants in the room? Okay, I was expecting everybody. Who's looking for information regarding cybersecurity as a company to learn more about cybersecurity? Okay, okay, we do have general interest, so that's good. Okay, let's kick off. First question. What we want to achieve today with you guys is provide to you first the trends that are in the market regarding cybersecurity, then how to protect yourself, how to react yourself, because, I mean, everybody will be hacked. The question is not how, but when. And then also talking a little bit about talent, you can train your teams and where can you find your talent regarding cybersecurity. Is that okay for everybody? And if you have more questions, please jump in. It's a roundtable. It's not a panel discussion. First question. What are the trends, Bart? Scare us a little bit.
You want to be scared?
Yeah,
actually,
scare us.
I kind of hate scaring these days. In the old days, we always scared everyone to say it's a dangerous world out there. It's, of course, still a dangerous world out there. But if you look at the trends, there's a huge involvement with regards to modern work. Every company, every industry is actually transforming itself for the last years. Every one of us knows this, right? Hybrid identity, hybrid work, move to the cloud. When we use this in more practical terms, we talk indeed about work from home, but also dual cloud usage. I pretty much know almost no company that is working with one cloud vendor or with one cloud technology. So there's a lot of stuff out there that what is actually right now in transformation, in implementation, and that combined with adoption, which we see in the trends globally and also within Belgium, and look at the 5G, and working with IoT, evolvement of IoT devices, increasing that expansion. Now, when we look at the trends there, is that while everyone is transforming itself digitally, the cybersecurity space is also transforming itself. Looking at companies, looking at governments, financial institutes, is that the first thing during a transformation is that we all actually, in a project, move the business first. Business, processes, evolve the people, and then the technology. Now, the challenge is that if we do all these activities, sometimes the cybersecurity approach or the modeling, the process modeling of working new digitally also has to change because it is evolving, but companies have to adopt. So looking at the trends on that level is that when we look at the hackers, every one of us knows in cybersecurity, there are between 6 and 8 types of hackers. Now, sometimes they are quicker than us because they already evaluated our transformation. And from the scaring point of view, they are already up to speed. They are using human-based ransom type of attacks. They are integrating AI types of technologies to really quickly evolve and adapt into the model that they want. In other words, they cannot do this alone anymore. The script kiddies of the early days, they are still out there, but it's a lot harder for script kiddies to evolve and to be successful. So it's really kind of a business model that they have built. These hackers are paid, period. That's it. They are really working themselves into it. So if we map the trends of business transformation with the dark side of things, is that the amount of attacks, the amount of successful attacks, that has evolved. Now, to give you one number, I've done some analysis in the first 6 months of this year. The first 6 months alone globally, there were more than 302 million successful ransomware attacks. So give that number a thought. No, in the industry. So from out of Microsoft.
What was the percentage on Microsoft? Joking.
No. So, I mean, Microsoft are customers of Microsoft. So, looking at the trends on this one, there are a lot of numbers that are pretty scary on a technology note, on a process note. Now, every one of you understood the terminology of fake news, I presume? I followed the elections with the highest interest, not just as a person, but also from a technology. But when you look at elections in larger states, that's where nation-state attackers go in. When you look, for example, at Belgium, a while ago, a couple of months ago, there was a specific cyber attack that almost brought Belgium down. These kinds of things are really focused on economical, ecological, and other types of states. That's, for me, that is a trend that will never stop. And that's a trend where we need to be vigilant for. When we transform, either it's IoT, 5G, integrating blockchain, using modern identities, using a security approach in processes and technology, that's where we need to be vigilant to follow the trends on the both sides of the coin, if it helps a bit.
Awesome. Then you have to tell us how we can do it. But later on. No, Wido, I'm coming back to you because it's very interesting what Bart mentioned, is the digitalization of the industries, the processes. I mean, you are the forefront of that.
Yeah. You hear a lot about protecting the networks and everything, but the weak factor is, of course, the human. And we trust even an email sent to us and click on everything and do everything. So we as Signicat, we are really on the forefront of knowing your customers. So the KYC process, knowing who is doing what, identifying the customer, but also when you have enrolled your services, be sure that they can authenticate themselves securely, because everything evolves around trust. And the customer is very trustworthy to services, but you need to protect this customer also. So one thing we see is that putting extra security to apps, because we are focusing on the mobile channel, so everything in the mobile channel is what we do. And putting some security in there and make sure that the customer can trust it and can use it secure, make at least the threat of being hacked or phishing, of course, for your information, spoofing, we try to reduce that. So that is exactly where the business we are in. So we are on the other side of the scope. So you have the network, but in the end, it is the human using this. So that's where we focus on.
So what you advise to us humans who use it?
Oh, don't click on links.
I mean, you have the double security authentication today. I'm so tired of always putting new, password and stuff like that.
Yeah, don't do that. Use this seamless way of doing that like we provide. Use the biometrics, enroll apps that makes it so simple, so seamless to use authentication without your password. Passwordless is really the trend forward. Not using SMS OTP because they are really not secure, this kind of things. Use your biometrics when possible. And that makes the journey also very interesting. For us as a supplier, it's something you discuss with your customer. You are not discussing technology, no, you are discussing the user experience. And for a user, they are used to use their biometrics or face by opening their phone. So why not identitate themselves by an app for that? So it's very logical.
Laurent, what's your intake? I mean, you advise clients all over Europe, maybe even beyond. On the trends, what have you seen your clients coming with problems?
So, fully agree with what Bart said on the different trendings. And what I'm listening, of course, from Wido is he's talking about an element which is very essential right now nowadays. He's calling about trust, and there is this new trend, of course, also of companies, and this is what we advise at Approach, is to adopt this new type of architecture that we call zero trust. Is actually don't trust anyone. Don't trust any IP connecting to your network. Don't trust any users try to log in on your infrastructure. But also you as a fintech organization, what does fintech do? Basically is you're developing also softwares, building digital solution and providing those solutions to your customers. So also within your development processes, don't trust basically all the libraries that you might be using also from the outside. Make sure that they have been properly recognized. So of course for that we are also advising solutions that exist on the market. We use Fortify, Sonatype, these type of things that can be implemented into your processes. So that's one. The other thing is when we talked about don't trust anyone is indeed identity. Making sure that you know people trying to log in, you know who they are, but clicking on phishing mail, everybody will do that, Yeah. So it's not a matter of if they will do it, they will just do it, right? I will do it. You will all guys, you will do it. So what you have to make sure is also, and that's a strong advice, is me when I'm advising CISO on customers, there is nothing worse than being blind on your network. You need to have visibility. You need to know what's going on your network.
What do you mean, a dashboard, monitoring?
Logging, monitoring, see what's going on
Real
your
time.
endpoint, on your network, on your cloud resources, whatever cloud that you use. You need to have a unified console from which you can see what's going on and you can quickly react. In fact, as Bart said, speed is the key element in my opinion, right? Whenever you will click on the phishing mail, this is not exactly when they will, strike. They will wait. They will wait until they have full control on your network. And this is when, at that time, that they will click on the button and that you will be hit. But then it's too late. So you have to be faster than they are. That's a little bit the kind of the situation that you have to. And of course, when that happen, because it will happen, shit will happen. The question is how good you will basically be able to face and react on that. So make sure that you have the competences, make sure that you have the skills, people that are able to help you reducing the impact of such a cyber attack. Another advice also, and that's also kind of a trend that we see, look for a good cyber insurance, right? Sometimes, no, but that's true. Sometimes, they may help you to take an insurance, not only to cover your residual risk, but also they have also contact with specialists in the industry that they can send you whenever there is a crisis to help you mitigate the threats. Mm-hmm. So that's basically the kind of advice that I would give.
Awesome. I will do a tour of the people here. But one question before for Alexia. I mean, you are in the blockchain. When they put you on that panel, I was wondering what a blockchain specialist could do on a cybersecurity panel.
Great question.
What does it mean, cybersecurity in the blockchain sphere?
Yeah, so I think, great question. Thank you very much. So the thing is that starting with blockchain was never designed to be a sole cybersecurity solution. Blockchain, by design, is the recreation of trust in an environment in which people do not know each other, to facilitate exchanges, to facilitate trades, transactions, etc., etc. So, because of its inherent features, such as decentralization, so all the nodes are decentralized, because everything on a blockchain is immutable, this leads to more security. And by security, this leads to higher what we call cyber resilience. But I wouldn't like people to equate blockchain with cybersecurity because they're not the same. Blockchain has feature which can lead to higher levels of security, but blockchain is not a cybersecurity solution. So that is the first point. Perhaps to get back to your question on the trends that we see, I think that what's interesting to note is that the problems that we see in the blockchain space are the exact same that we see in other industries. And the way in which I read the industry is basically twofold. On the one hand, you're going to have the enterprise level, what we call protocol or platform level. And on the other, you're going to have threats or problems or challenges that are linked to the user or the individual. If we talk about the platforms, for example, this year alone, we've seen a 41% increase in cyber threats and hacks and leaks in the blockchain world. And that represented around like 10 billion.
It's a very lucrative market.
It is. I mean, especially if you consider that we're in a COVID situation in which like everyone is in their houses. We're increasingly going into a world in which like we're going to live in the metaverse. We see that a lot in blockchain. I mean, people going to NFTs leading to the metaverse. I mean,
oh, damn, I hope you're wrong on that, but yes, looks like
it's scary. I mean, it's you know, very dystopic. I mean, you see Facebook, who's renamed like Meta, because like we're going there. So I think that we're going to see an increase in threats as well. So the education is on one hand on the company side, and I agree with the fact that every company should have a cybersec department to call to whenever there's a problem or a threat, especially data companies. I was speaking the other day on another panel with someone who's a data specialist, and he was telling me that basically his business model is to facilitate data monetization of companies. But on the other hand, they didn't have any cybersec. They weren't up to date on cybersec threats, or you know, so that's a big problem. And on the other hand, the user, again, so agree, problems of phishing, so never open an email, never open an executable file from someone that you don't know, you know, these types of things. When it comes to password management, for example, don't put your name, your date of birth, or the name of your dog, or whatever, because there are attacks that are well-known, dictionary attacks, which are applied by hackers, which lead to these hacks, or you know, which facilitate everything that's happening in the cyber world. In very occasional, very rare cases, you're going to have a hacker who's going to target someone and kind of rat their computer, meaning like penetrate their computer and just taking control, overseeing everything that's happening on the computer. That never happens. It's usually because at an individual level, there was an error committed, either very easy password to guess, either some information shared on social media, like never do that. Always use everything encrypted social media, encrypt your files if your passwords are kept on files on your desktop, use password managers, etc., etc.
Yes, it's a very scary world out there. No, to be honest, I mean, we at the Loft, for the ones that don't know us, we are an incubator based in Luxembourg. We incubate 87 firms. And some of our firms, and very small firms, fintech, have been hacked. And most of the time it's ransomware. So, I mean, they take control of your data, and they don't give your data and access to your laptop before you pay them. They never told me if they pay or not, but I guess they had to. So it can touch anybody, in fact. Last Friday, we had the acceleration program in Luxembourg, whatever, and we have the last pitching session. 5 of the 10 pitching companies will get 50K from the Ministry of Economy. It was a very close session on Zoom, only for governmental representative, our community. At one point in time, Zoom went nuts. People start drawing sex symbol on the screen. I could not understand what was going on. So afterwards, we discovered that some Russian kids, I guess, they went to see who will be the person present in that conference. They named themselves as participants of that conference, and they got in. And I say, my God, it's so insane. Some kids didn't hack our Zoom, but they managed to get in, and believe me, it was a very painful hour for me. And it's not done yet because I will.
Can I say something? Because the 3 speakers, the funny thing is cybersecurity is always putting the blame on the user. Right? You need to be more secure. You need to do everything. You need to be careful about this. You need to, and I think that it is the service provider that needs to facilitate the security to the others. Like if you communicate as a service provider to your consumers, push a message to them from, hey, I'm your service provider, and can you please confirm that you are you and that you want to talk to us? This kind of things that will build a lot more trust, because it is that we are pushing so much responsibility to the company itself and saying from, it's not our mistake that something goes wrong as a service provider.
Bart is looking at you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
come. I'm just challenging you a little bit.
Only a little. That's too bad. Last year, I've been active in the cybersecurity world for a couple of years already, and remember that last year was a specific company that asked me to help them in their internal cybersecurity week. So it's a global company, plus 10,000 end users, and the CISO know him pretty well. Said, "Hey Bart, we are hosting an internal security week," and I loved it because this is a narrative that everyone understands. Humans are the weakest link. You need to. I'm completely bugged out of that one, and actually named that week. You are the strongest link. So they hosted a lot of sessions. Nice. Yeah, exactly. Nice. They hosted a lot of sessions, internal awareness sessions, based by either the CISO department or partners like myself, to really build specific types of sessions. So I've built a lot of custom videos on that one. Late at night, what else going to do? It's Netflix or that one. So by the way, Netflix and actually works together. So actually build a couple of sessions to really help them to, on a user level, explain that if you have an email, and that email is like A, B, or C, look at point A and B. If you're going to send out an email, make sure that if you're going to send it out externally, click on a button to encrypt, for example, or make sure that it is a state of mind. And as a practical example, what I really liked about that one is I translated it into my home. So on a practical note, I have a daughter. She's 14 years old right now, 14 and a half. Every time she gets a text message, an SMS or something else, she runs into my home office, and then together we go find out who the adversary is. And then together we go kind of reverse thingamajig. But so I agree. It's a combination of a lot of different things. It's like every one of us knows this, the fluffy term, layered defense in depth. It goes into the human, the company, the ISP level. We all need to be connected somewhere. Microsoft too, right? That's a bit of the idea. Yeah.
I like it because everybody in company is involved, in fact.
Yeah.
Could be a weak link or the strong link.
Exactly.
You want to say something, Laurent?
Yes, just to continue on that. We talk about users in a company. I think it needs to address all the users in the company. So not only, let's say, the end users, but it needs to be also everybody in the company needs to be involved. And what we also start to see now as a trend and a need, we talked about cyber resilience, right? Company needs to be resilient. They need to be able to face a cyber attack. They need to know how they are going to react. Most of the time, the executive level, they don't know, right? Something wrong happened. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to call my IT. I'm going to call my service provider. They need to be prepared. And I think that's also part, doing a cybersecurity week, very good idea. I think it should be part of a whole awareness program that touch everyone into an organization at different level. And training executive, also management team on how to face, so like doing top table exercise, for example, or there are different types of way of doing that, preparing scenarios. But I think that's also a very important part of your cybersecurity strategy, is to make sure that these guys, they also know what we are expecting from them when something goes wrong into their organization. In the past, we were talking about business continuity, that we're focusing on a plane hitting a data centers. Now it's completely different. It's
it
about
could be worse than a plane. Yeah. Anybody wants to share from? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you to the panel. First of all, I'm a member of the Loft with Grace Connect, so now I'm a bit skeptical about using Zoom. Maybe you should move to Teams.
Yeah, goodbye. Thank you.
So maybe first, I have 2 points. The first question is on the trend. Do you see a trend also regarding women in cyber? In Luxembourg, we have this kind of community, women for cyber. and what could be done to encourage or to do, to continue this trend going forward. Yeah, in general. And then the second question is more for the panel. When we engage into a cybersecurity program, we can, on the one hand, invest into technicalities such as DLP, encryption, or airbag, or INAM. On the other hand, we could also invest into awareness to make sure that, as you said, the weakest link being the people could be, let's say, aware of cybersecurity threats incoming and so on. But when you face a ransomware, I think is, as you said, the moment in time where you realize that the core assets of your organization is at risk, and hence your going concern could be also at risk. So the question I had at that moment would be, how do I face a hacker, an individual hacker, or a group of hackers sending a ransomware? How do I face this, and how do I negotiate or start a negotiation in order to win time, or to make sure that the threat is giving to my company does not materialize to in the end destroy the reputation of my company. Thank you.
Do you mind if we take the two questions of Jean-Louis in a few minutes? Okay, because it's coming back to training and it's coming back to how to react. But before how to react, anybody of you has been hacked and want to share, hacked or whatever, breach? Nobody wants to say, yeah, I screw up. Nobody? Okay. Sorry? Hacked? You've been hacked?
The mailbox was...
Do you want to share? Share with us.
No, I had one time, some two years ago, my mailbox has been taken away by somebody else who sent some mails to my contacts, just saying, look guys, we have an interesting project, etc., etc. And I had to change immediate passwords. Eventually nothing was stolen, but I had a reputational issue because my contacts received the project, and where that I put a message on LinkedIn, but this was the only thing which I could do because they were able to take my contacts of people which I've, since 5 years, I had no contacts with them. So it was a quite embarrassing experience.
But it's good. You reconnect with your contacts.
In a way. Yeah, in a good way.
You talk about reputation. It's something interesting because none of you mention it. The damage on reputation.
It's about trust, eh?
Yeah.
You don't trust your service provider if the reputation is bad.
But it also mentions something which is common sense, which is that when you receive a mail from the mails are usually worded in a very specific way. We have an interesting project, we would like to share it, please open this link. If it comes from from the moment on you're suspicious, you don't open it, and possibly you contact the guy if you know him and say, I received this mail, and I've already seen even people who took ownership of a LinkedIn account. And
François, every entrepreneur's email starts with that. I have a very interesting project for you. So all entrepreneurs could be hackers. As he said, we might all become paranoid, but he's been hacked on the email. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, so, hello. Yeah.
Please
I think,
your name and
oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, my name is Sam. So I think that's enough.
Yes, you would.
Okay, yeah. So I was, my identity was stolen right about 10 years ago when I was in England, basically. So my driving license was at home, and my identity, some of the identity was home, but I was abroad. So someone broke in and stole my driving license. Where in UK, the driving license also have your home address mentioned. So someone took that identity and applied a credit card for, and delivered to a different address, basically. And of course, in credit rating agency, they detected as a fraud. Of course, the credit card didn't process through, but my identity was flagged as a red, basically, because of the suspicious activity. And for that reason, I couldn't apply for any other credit card for the next 2 or 3 years because it's in my credit file that I was, used as a suspicious activity, etc., etc. So yeah, I faced a lot of troubles. I couldn't even get a mobile phone subscription because that's the only red flag has been in my identity card for 2.5 years, something like that. It has an automatic timer, so it has to expire, and then only I could do that. So yeah, faced a lot of trouble, but yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Sam. Anybody else but in their companies, no? Okay. Then coming back to the question of Jean-Louis, how to react? How to react?
So my first point is don't take the risk of negotiating with them. Be prepared. That's the first advice, right? And and of course, so it's about sometimes very basic stuff, right? But make sure that you have good backups, that you have air gaps in your backups, that you test your backups regularly, right? Especially on your critical data, critical assets. Now, indeed, you will face eventually ransomwares. Again, coming back to what Bart said, they are quite organized. So when they are hitting you, they already know how much turnover your company is doing, and they will make you an offer based basically on that number. So which is fair. There is a possibility always to negotiate, but you're never sure. We've been contacted by companies where it was too late, they didn't have good backups. Eventually, the key was available, and we could help them to decrypt some of their files. So that's when you are lucky. When you're unlucky, there is nothing you can do, right? So don't take that risk. Negotiating, they will certainly negotiate, right? And they will at some point decrease the price, but they know exactly how much you earn. So don't take that risk. That's basically my best advice.
And on a practical note, that encryption and decryption key, right? It happens that when you are attacked, and I'm very happy also to respond in a defending state and everything else. I've seen a couple of companies that were indeed impacted after domain dominance and other types of stuff. And what a hacker typically does, so the cyber actor, when he has encrypted your data, what they typically do is they provide you with the decryption key proven on a couple of files, right? That's, here, dear customer X, we got your data, here's the decryption key, here you go. Hey, we have to prove that we can do this, so pay us money, right? Pay us bitcoins. Now, what they don't show you, what they don't tell you sometimes, is that the decryption key is not always valid when we talk about databases or something else. So we've encountered a couple of companies globally that were hacked, that were brought down. They paid a gazillion amount of monies to get everything back because cyber insurance was not enough. The cyber actors has done their due diligence, so they have exactly know what the turnover is. So they ask for a decent amount. And then they get the decryption key, and the decryption key hardly works because it works on some files. But unstructured data, for example, sometimes have a challenge. Yes.
Yes.
I have a question on this topic because, and it's probably a difficult one, because what is our moral obligation as an ethical obligation as a cybersecurity professional? How do we guide the board in such a situation when we face ransomware? In order not to support the ransomware as a service business model. Because very often, and in my past life as a consultant, I had these exercises with the board and they said, oh yeah, but we pay 2 mil for the insurance, so we're just gonna pay the ransom. Why would we be paying so much for the insurance otherwise? So how do you direct that between the business impact, the reputational impact, and supporting the business models of the hackers?
That's a very, very good question. Before responding to this, because very good question, this is the worst case scenario, all right? So before we will move into the responding, try to respond in your question, this is the worst case scenario, right? And that's more on a personal note, what I really like about the industry is that we have cyber insurance companies that support customers in providing extra layers of security. When something happens, we got your back, right, on a financial note. What I found disturbing, more on a personal note, is that we have companies that say, you know what, pay us X amount of dollars and we will pay the hackers, right? So here we go and we'll help you. So it is a very gray area that for me as a glass half full kind of thing, what I like about these industries and these types of companies, but that needs to be mentioned also into the board, into the members of the board, that they need to understand the risks and to improve cyber resilience, is that when we talk about cyber insurance company, one of the things they always ask is to do a cyber assessment. Right? Do and execute a cyber assessment. If you don't prove yourself to be cyber mature, have a good cyber resilience, we will not help you, right? For me, that's an essential key point that sometimes people forget because they take that one as a snapshot. You know what? On January 1st, we want to go into cyber resilience, cyber insurance, because for an audit or something else, we need to be ready. So let's do the audit, and then go away because it's led by the IT security department. So from a moral point of view, there's a very lot of things to say about this because it can go either very, very good or very bad immediately. For me, it really depends on that layer defense in depth, where cyber insurance could be an add-on, could be a step in that chain to assist a company. But it's not, yeah, I mean, sure, I've also had contacts with companies or industries, put it like this, that the cyber actors knew the amount of cyber insurance that company or industry was paying. And then they doubled it. And that's it. And then the companies call us in panic mode, or call companies like every one of us, say, guys, we have a challenge because we don't have the budget, but we're down. So it starts at the very beginning. It starts with indeed understanding your industry, understanding your transformation, building a security program, a resilience program to every technology that you use, starting with the identities, moving into layer defense in depth, and then moving to the rest, if it helps a bit.
Laurent, quickly, and then I will. Oh, Alexia, go ahead.
If I may jump in from a different perspective, I think that when you're already hacked, I mean, I don't like to say it, but I think it's too late. When it comes to cybersecurity, you have to be proactive rather than reactive. And to get back on your question on, like an ethical behavior to not sustain the, hacking as a service kind of model or ransomware as a service, I think that us as individuals have a have a moral obligation to be responsible when it comes to, cybersecurity and privacy online. And I think that's a very important step that we oversee. But as we are increasingly going towards a digital world and our lives are increasingly being digitized, I think it is very important for us as individuals to not rely on, a higher hierarchy or entity or whatever to do the job for us. We have to do it ourselves. And then once everyone will start being aligned, the whole structure of the companies will also evolve and change. But I don't think it will come from the top, but rather from the bottom. And that's something that we saw in blockchain, for example. At the very beginning, when people were talking about blockchain, it was demonized. No one really understood it. They thought it was for money laundering, et cetera, et cetera. But now we see venture capitals coming to us because it comes from, their clients ask to have exposure to, crypto assets. And so this is kind of a similar thing. I think that these things have to come from the bottom rather than the top to be enforced and to make sense.
What do you do for your clients? I don't know, on the prevention side maybe.
With Tezos?
With
Tezos, so it's, again, Tezos is a different technology than Ethereum, for example, than Bitcoin. So we have different features. One of these features is what we call formal verification of smart contracts. Formal verification is a science that actually comes from the nuclear industry and is used to make sure that the code that is deployed in the solution is cyber resilient. So that is developed in a manner that is pertinent, that it's not going to break, that it's not going to be hacked, etc., etc. And so we've reused that formal verification, applied it in the Tezos ecosystem to make sure that the solutions that are deployed in the Tezos smart contracts are resilient.
So they cannot be hacked.
So they technically cannot be hacked if they have been formally verified. But we have a lot of entrepreneurs. Again, Tezos is a decentralized ecosystem. So sometimes we have people developing solutions, so smart contracts, that are not necessarily formally verified and then just create a DEX or whatever, decentralized exchange, or an NFT platform or whatever that we have not formally verified. So it's hard to keep control on a decentralized ecosystem, but at least users are warned. It's just we tell users, check whether it's been formally verified.
But it would be interesting to learn from you guys, Wido and Alexia, because we have some fintechs here in the room. What's your responsibilities if the hack comes from your platform, your protocol, or through your products, solutions? Yeah. Do you have an insurance for that?
Because then I can think.
Go first.
You want to sell her something?
No,
okay, go ahead.
So this discussion we have now, it's a little bit far away from me. So I was more linked to this issue that Sam had because cybersecurity, it's in the end, if you're talking about companies, it's sometimes a little bit abstract for the employees there. So what else? You are insured as a company, but if it is about your credit card, it suddenly hits your personal life, and that is something I think it's always left a little bit behind in the security. So if you apply for a credit card and you only use one identity format, yeah, you get issues. So today they will ask you for like electronic ID that you have to confirm that you are really you. So you see that the industry is trying to solve that issue. So what we try to do is make that more secure for the personal. But now your question from what is the industry? What if we are hacked? So probably we have several kind of services. Sometimes we are a broker of other IDs to use to identify people. So if those IDs, and that happens, you have breaches of databases and identities are like, yeah, honestly, we cannot manage that. That is something outside our span of control. But for example, our authentication solution, Mobile ID, we are responsible for the security of that. So we have all kind of security in that with double keys and secured layer. We do the pen test, like we discussed today.
Can you explain what's a pen test? Maybe some people don't know.
Laurent can explain much better than me because we are just buying that kind of services. I have no clue what they do. We just get a green check the box. We've done that. But that is what we can do. We can just leverage on, okay, we done our utmost to make it as secure as possible. And that's what we can do for the end user and not for the companies. We are not working, we do the KCB, like know your business kind of things, and that we secure the people you're doing business with. But that's limited. We are really focusing on the end user there.
Okay, Laurent, what's a pen test?
Put you for the block.
Who doesn't know what's a pen test? Oh, who knows what's a pen test?
Okay.
Everybody?
So I don't
no,
have
okay.
I don't have
we
to
do have some
explain
people
it.
don't know. Go ahead.
So in a nutshell, doing a pen test on a system, on an environment, is basically trying to identify vulnerabilities within that system and trying to exploit that vulnerabilities in order to either leak some data or get privileged access into that information and take control. So when we do a pen test at Approach, for example, we have different types of of scenario. But let's take a simple web server, web service, right? So basically we are going to try, and that's basically a mixture of course, technology that we are using, but very much combined with human skills that are able not only to detect the vulnerabilities within the web service, but also trying to get inside in order to leak data, compromise user account, get privileged access. And so at the end of the day, we are delivering let's say what we call a report that we discuss together with our customers. We help them understanding what the issues are and help them to fix those issues so that they are kind of safe and make sure that this application is not vulnerable. Of course, that's an activity that we advise, and it's not only an advice. It's mainly also regulated in many instances, like in PCI, for example, where you have to execute a penetration test regularly on your environment. By the way, your customers are asking that as well in many instances. So that's in a nutshell. Yeah.
And you provide that?
Was it clear? Or
your company is providing that?
We are providing pen testing on different type of infrastructure.
How much did it cost, a pen test?
That's a very good question. It really depends. Like I said, so we do pen testing on infrastructure, web application, mobile application, networks like Wi-Fi.
Okay.
We also do what we call red teaming. So red teaming has different types of objectives. It's more about testing your defense capabilities, right? So just to see how your basically cybersec department will eventually see that something suspicious is occurring, when they're seeing, and how they will going to react. So it's really hard to provide you a number because it really depends on the scope of the activity that we do.
So you are all running pen test as you, okay. The lady in the back, first of all, you should come in the front and sit. Okay. What's your feedback regarding pen test? What's your rating? Do you have a green check? but it's mainly technical. It's not on the social engineering, right?
When you do
part of it.
when you do what we call a red team, again,
A red team.
Red teaming. So it's really about red team. It's really about testing your defense capabilities. Then again, you can discuss with your customers the type of scenario that you want to perform. It can start with also trying to get a physical access into your building. Of course, now I understand people are working all from home, so perhaps it's a little bit less relevant nowadays, but it could be one of the scenarios. You can also try to test, first of all, let's try to get inside, so what we call the initial access. Through a phishing mail, and then from that phishing, let's see how far we can get. Can we get, for example, root access to your Active Directory? So that's the kind of target that we can define together with the customer, which start with a phishing mail. Or we can, another scenario, just to give an example, to take the assumption when we start the project to start from a compromised environment. So we are already inside your network, and from there we see what we can get. Right? So we already passed the initial access, but then we see if we can do lateral movement into your network, if we can get persistent, so if we can remain on your network without you noticing if we are there, and then finally to get some privilege escalation. So from a normal user to get domain admin on your environment, right? So that's
Do you have any
type of example.
Any crusty example of a company where you, I don't know?
We always find something.
Okay, but I mean.
It's when you talk about cyber attacks and pen testing, black box, gray box, white box, and everything else. So I know a little bit about a company. I know a lot about your company. I have no idea, so I really have to go into depth. We have a lot of phases, which indeed involves, for example, reconnaissance. Before you go into initial access to try to get in, you always do, for example, reconnaissance phases, and that is something where technology is very difficult in understanding because you have two types of reconnaissance. You have the passive ones and the active ones. And this is something fun on the other side of things.
Fun. Define fun.
Fun. I had an organization that asked me in my free time, hey Bart, we are setting up a new platform. Do you want to test us? Do you want to verify where our vulnerabilities lay? And the first thing you always do, and this is also for everyone in here, the first thing a cyber actor does is go to Google. Bing. No, Google. Forgot about it. Something. Search engine. So they go actually into search engines, and they start just typing in names. So, for example, in that company, what I've done, I looked at the guy that asked me, and after 10 minutes, I had his home address, his wife's hobbies, what motorcycle he drove, and his mobile number. So I called him, say, hey, dear X, I get everything. Do you want me to proceed? But that's on a human manual level. So that's what actually happens on a programmatical phase too. So what the guys do, they actually write scripts and automation. And then there's two things that you can and cannot do. First of all, you have no idea what they're doing. It's from the moment they touch your environment, it becomes an active one. And from that active reconnaissance, it really quickly goes to initial access. And that's where we always need that layer defense in depth. There's something that I always like to mention on a very provocative way, and apologies if anyone gets offended. We do not need endpoint security. Period. We don't need it. Because in a theoretical world, there are so many boundaries, so many layers, so many segments that a hack or an attack has to go through before it gets on the endpoint. In principle, the endpoint is the last thing where they can get to. The identity today, that's the first thing. Why is this? Modern work, digital transformation. Every one of us knows that when I still had hair, an identity was in your on-premises environment. If you want to go into your on-premises environment, you need to walk through a firewall, a proxy, and everything that was there, a WAF. And then you got a foothold. Right now, digital transformation helped us. Hey, COVID hit us, everyone started, hey, you know what, work from home, I'm working from home. 15 years ago, you know what, work from home, okay, give me a pen and paper, that's it, I have nothing, right? Everyone had a gazillion amount of identities that they constantly need to write passwords on papers. What we can do today, indeed, also with the collaboration of identity stores and everything else, we can unify their identity. So I can use my one identity to go to all types of services. I can use actually everything I want with one identity. So cyber actor is lazy. The IT guys and girls are just lazy. So what they do, they go for the most easy part. So on that note, the red teaming, the hacking exercises, but also think about, especially also in the tech, in the fintech world, think about a fire drill. This makes it fun. In the past, I've done some gigs as a project leader. What I've done, for example, is kind of a gamification thing. Make it cybersecurity is not something that is, ugh, it's fun. Make it fun for employees, make it fun for the board. Give a fire drill to the board, to the executives.
We have that in Luxembourg. It's called Room 42. Who's from Luxembourg here? A few people. So Room 42 has been built by the Ministry of Economy. It's an escape game. Who knows escape games? All of you? Okay. It's an escape game, but it's on a cybersecurity base. There is 2 rules. You don't run, and you don't hit. When you get in and they tell you that, you don't understand. But once you start, so each one of you are like 6 people, different personalities and roles. So I was the head of HR. And I was sitting at a table, somebody else was the CEO, the whatever. And you are receiving messages constantly with sounds, with alarms. So the breach came from me. I screw up. And he was the chairman, one of the biggest German banks. It took me and said, "You piece of shit, it's because of you." After half an hour, he was so into it because it's so human.
Yes.
And the stress level was so high that I understood that everybody is involved in a company, and the stress has to be pre-built to be proactive on, in fact, to the day when it arrives. So I agree with you. So Room 42, check it out. And it comes to my last question before moving to the next subject. Who are the firefighters in Belgium? Because we in Luxembourg, we have security made in Luxembourg, in CERT, we call them when something happens. Who's in Belgium or in France?
In Belgium, for example, we have a kind of a segmentation there. So, for example, we have the Center of Cybersecurity in Belgium, the CCB.
Okay.
CCB has a couple of departments, and not going to go in a lot of acronyms or something else, but they have a department that really can help the firefighters. They're the CERT. Also have an intelligence department. They have a lot of things. We have a lot of cybersecurity partners, like Approach, like the colleagues in here, that really can be called up when you have a contract. We have Microsoft, for example, that delivers technology for the firefighters. The layer security, defense in depth, XDR, platforms, identity security, just name it. We need to have technology to support the firefighters. So it starts with the technology that is supported by technology vendors like Microsoft. It is built and used by fire drills, either owned or supported by the government or private entities, and they have to work together more and more to build that coalition, as you might say. So within Belgium, on a high level note, that's a liability of the...
There is a few institutions in Belgium that you can call.
Yes.
And Microsoft is part of one of them.
Yes, we are also part of them next to the
Can they call you, the people here?
047.
Good. Alexia, in France, do you have any...
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Okay.
No
Anybody else wants to share some expertise regarding firefighters? What are the go-to person to call when you had problems? Yes?
I think it's important to have pre-established partners in case you face an incident, because when you have an incident, of course, you don't have the time. So it's important to have pre-established relationship with legal counsels, IT experts, cybersecurity experts, communication specialists as well, provide the transparency you need when you face an attack.
Where are you working, sir?
He's my boss.
He's your boss. Okay. So you need to already have like a task force that you can call when it's needed.
Yeah, we call it the crisis management team.
Okay.
So you need to build that team and to train them, of course, so that whenever there is an incident, you feel ready. And also think of having a dedicated location you can get access to when your facilities might be rocked by the ransomware.
The business continuity stuff. Okay. Any question? Yeah, go ahead.
What I want to add to that is it's also important to know which third parties you need to contact, because, for example, I'm working at a bank, and so if a third party has a ransomware and we are working closely with them, there is a lot of our data at the client side. We see that there is a lot of issues there that we are contacted like really late in those situations, and that we sometimes see things in the news about the third party that we are working with, and then think, oh, our data might also be compromised because of this. And that is something that we see a lot of companies that is not really mature yet. A list of people they need to contact or companies they need to contact, and that's something I think that's really important, that you know who you need to contact in case something happens.
Anything to I think it also comes back down to the communication when it happens. What kind of transparency you have? You must have your partners, maybe even with the world, because at one point in time it will go out anyway. So it's better it's coming from you, saying, we've been hacked, we had this breach of contacts, and then that's what we are doing. Then just waiting that, the shit hits the fan, and then, yeah. Anything to add, Alexia?
That reminds me of an email that I received from Ledger, which is a wallet, like hard.
Yes, I know them very well, a French one.
And but what was happening is that there were hackers sending emails pretending they were the Ledger company, saying, hey, like you've been hacked, you need to change your password. And so some people would actually change their password thinking that it was Ledger, but it wasn't. So a great example of phishing. So you always have to be careful. Have to check where the email comes from, etc., because phishing happens very easily.
Paranoiac.
Agreed.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to react on the topic you mentioned, because we are all here in this room with a certain level of awareness about threats, and we evoke some. I want to share an example and then ask you guys a question about the challenge we face.
Then you have to wait for the mic because it looks important.
I received an email, also a phishing attempt that I directly recognized. It was from It's Me, system to identify yourself in Belgium. And fakely, indeed, there was a reset of my It's Me application. I needed to directly click on the link. And the first reflex I had, SMS, short message. I think it was broadly shared in Belgium because I directly also contacted It's Me about that to at least say, if no one relays the experience, well, I don't know if those guys will ever know about it. Indeed, I received an answer from them saying that they were already aware and it's tackled and blah, blah, blah. The question is, the first reflex I had is share that with all my friends saying, hey, please don't click on that or don't resort to that because you will have some issues. And my question is, in the banking sector, we are working on digitalization a lot, making the adoption really a challenge to say to customer, go on our app, use this, use It's Me, use short message, OTP, and so on. And on the other hand, well, the threats are constantly moving. So I wanted to have your opinion on how can we deal with that? Like on the same level, moving our clients towards more digitalization and digital flows. And on the other hand, keep them aware without threatening or without make them fear.
Can I be the
Good luck with that.
It's a complimentary question.
Yes, it's an add-on basically. So I think I wanted to ask anyway, so my colleague brought it. Thank you. So I receive a lot of SMS every day. A lot of them are spam, basically. So yeah, it's very popular. And ask me SPF, your tax authority owes you 100 euros. Click this link and then voila, go there.
Go.
Yeah, so
Clicking.
Cool. Normally, so if you just click there, it will look so authentic. You end up giving all your credentials, your details, etc., right? So you're at the bank. We have a moral duty of protecting people's money. But when the user end up giving their own credentials and everything and losing the money, so we end up sending lots of communications to our customers that don't click on these phishing links, don't give up your identities, pins and passwords, etc. So when the user end up giving up all those details and losing money, where do you see that we can end up educating people first? And also second, that if there is any possibility that, the user don't get those SMS in the first place, like if there is any technology to block those text messages that they don't click at all.
Yeah. You have such a nice use cases each time. But it links a little bit with a question that is in my head, and that's for Alexia, for the blockchain. Because, in Europe, we are now setting up this ID. And that's a little bit linked to SSI, self-sovereign identity. So this kind of, that you as a consumer are responsible for your own identity, you can manage it. That means that you are also responsible for give it away when it's not. So you need to protect that. And I surely believe that kind of to protect this kind of things, you need something like a ledger and your identity to know what is happening, such like an audit trail that you can be protected. And if something in this audit trail is not correct, like you give some information which is you need to be secure, so you need to authenticate yourself, and then everything is audited about that, and that you kind of have a risk system behind it that says hey, watch it, you are giving away this kind of information. Are you sure you want to give it away? That might protect consumers in that way. That means that banks can link, you see that happening by banks. They try to build up this kind of identity. So if you manage your own identity and you are protected by this shield, could be blockchain technology that keeps track on what is happening here, is that you get a flag as a consumer when you share this information, because now in SMS world, nothing is controlling you. The operator don't care because it is just a transaction for them. But if you go into this mobile world with mobile apps, you can be protected by that. So that's happening in Europe about this ID wallet, the SSI involvement. So there is trends going on that might protect the consumer by doing this, by protecting them from doing this, with all respect, stupid things. So that's interesting. There are trends going on.
Anybody else wants to answer the question?
I wanted to react to your question. We get in a little bit into the world of what we call the threat intelligence. So it's really about knowing your enemy, understanding what they will do before they do something, and as Bart said, typically they will be one step ahead. Not an easy question, not an easy answer. Just a couple of elements. Indeed, the CCB has different departments. One is the CERT.be. The second one is more focusing on also awareness, and they have their platform that they call Safe on Web, for example. That's just one example. They also sharing some of these threats with what they call their critical infrastructure, which includes the bank and the insurance in a way. But that doesn't relieve your responsibility, you as a company and providing services to your consumers, to also be able to notify them as soon as you're aware of something going wrong. But it should be a bidirectional. Threat intelligence is about sharing data and sharing information. And like I said, in Belgium, they are probably not as mature as they are in other countries, but they start to be organized also with the cybersecurity coalitions and those type of initiatives. So that's just perhaps one element of answer, but indeed that typical stuff on It's Me, it was available on Safe on Web, and you could easily then get it from there. But you need also to be visible on the media, and I think that's what the CCB starts also trying to do. There are some campaigns that exist right now. It's not enough. That's clearly not enough. But let's say if you're looking from where they started a couple of years ago and where they are today, I think there are quite good improvement that they did so far.
Thank you for your feedback.
As a small add-on, if it's possible.
Fast one.
Very fast. Combination of cybersecurity needs to be away from it needs to be more mainstream. Right now, cybersecurity is niche. It needs to be mainstream. Every one of us knows, if I'm living in the northern part of Antwerp, if I'm driving in Antwerp, I know it's 50 kilometers or 30 kilometers. That's it. It's not niche. Everyone understands the need, right? So it has to be a commodity. Next to it, indeed, threat intelligence and active detections to support the cyber resilience. Technology will always be needed. Technology in combination with the human aspect, commodity, understanding the basic principles for every role, from out of a Belgian citizen into an employee with every type of level. And then we need to understand very quickly as a technology, to be as quick as possible for the adversaries, to understand if someone is sending it, before you receive it, it needs to be either blocked, because we understand it based on global intelligence, local intelligence, and also when you are going to click, it needs to be intercepting. It needs to be able as a technology to understand that identity that I'm using today on that endpoint in a zero trust model, is this normal? The automation in detection prevention needs to be there in every company.
That was not fast, but thank you.
Yeah, I know. For me, it's fast.
Okay, guys, we still have like less than 10 minutes for the last subject, is talent. I don't know about cybersecurity, nothing, but I know the software development world. In 8 years, we're gonna lack 80 million software developers all over the world. And it's the IMF who says that. So we're gonna lack a lot of engineers. And we see it today with us startups, entrepreneurs, just recruiting is quite hard. What about the cybersecurity world? And let's start with the blockchain world. What can be done? I mean, in Luxembourg, we had a few educational programs for kids. We start now the secondary school, teaching people about PHP, a little bit about cybersecurity. But, I mean, we are not there. I don't know what's done in the educational system in Belgium. But what would be your recommendation, even maybe in the training inside the companies, or maybe after that you have questions regarding that? Alexia.
I mean, so of technology, a trend that we're seeing is that increasingly students, very young students, have access to a computer in the context of the studies that they're having in their school, and they're actually having development courses. So I've heard about students in small villages, whatever, learning about front-end development, and I think that's great. That wasn't there when I was a student. So I think that the ability of national governments to facilitate the access to technology to the upcoming generations is great. At more of an enterprise level, what we're seeing, well, I mean, my case is different because I work in blockchain, so all the people that we have around us already know, they have a basic of understanding.
Yeah,
exactly. But I think that the great thing with upcoming technology, fintech, blockchain, etc., is that they are sexy technology. So they are very appealing. There's a lot of people who want to. I receive a lot of messages on LinkedIn, for example, from people who just have had an MBA and they're just like, oh, I would love to work in blockchain, but I don't know how to enter because I'm not really a dev. They are very appealing, and so I think that because they are appealing, they're also facilitating and giving greater flexibility to the needs that come with it, aka developers, cybersec specialists, etc., etc. So yeah.
Why I'm asking this question is, but 1 hour now I'm listening to you guys, and for me it looks like it's war. It's the bad guys against the good guys, and I mean, all the governments are preparing our population to war by having a mandatory military service. Maybe we don't want to go there, a cybersecurity service that would be mandatory. But I mean, it's quite dramatic because it can influence our infrastructure, can influence our energy. It's not just about fintech and our money. It's much more than that. What's your point of view regarding talent, Wido? What do you do inside your company?
Our development is in Norway, in Oslo. And what we do to get talents is organize hackathons, this kind of things. Just get the students in. They might not have the technical education, but they have the interest. So there's always room for people that have a different perspective on things. Because if you are a developer, with all respect to development, you learn to think in processes and in blocks. And sometimes it's very good to have a chemistry engineer looking at things that does it completely different. So we try to interest people in coming in and just solve a problem together and see where their talent is, and that works. But nevertheless, we have issues getting talents, of course. That's everywhere in Europe.
Microsoft?
Education within Belgium needs to be better on cybersecurity. Thinking, for example, about HOWEST, Hogeschool West-Vlaanderen, they are not only working very diligently on cybersecurity, they're also very adamant about it. They really advertise it. And next to it, in cybersecurity, as it becomes hopefully more commodity, it has to be embedded in an engineering point of view, in a developer point of view. Looking at, for example, SDLC, secure development lifecycle systems and everything else. So it needs to be there from the moment that we start, shift left. And we need to find people that are interested in innovation, that think indeed by using hackathons, because indeed the interviewing part with using hackathons really can, positively enthusiast people that never thought about that aspect. So we have to stop thinking traditionally and thinking out of the box to have people interested and educated.
Laurent?
I guess first point, indeed, we are lacking competences. There are not enough skills out there in Belgium just to address the number of issues and incidents that we see out there. So that's, I think, it's just a reality, and we at Approach, we are also suffering from that, because sometimes you are obliged to say, a customer, you have to wait, but they are not, they can't wait. So that's element number one. Number two, yes, indeed, universities start to put cybersecurity program into the master in place. We can see that in Ghent, in the KU Leuven, in the ULB, and others. So but it's starting, right? And I think it's yet again a responsibility that comes from an ecosystem. So it should come from the universities, but it should also come from the private sector for companies like Approach, like your companies, like Microsoft, where we all have also to play. So that's the second element. The third element, when I'm interviewing somebody just to hire at Approach, and the guy's telling me that he knows everything about cybersecurity, usually I have some doubt. The number of skills that you need to have, the number of different competences that you need to have is also growing, right? So it could be very technical in the application security space, in the pure cybersecurity space as an incident responder, but also in the GRC space, right? So just to implement policies and stuff like that. So that's all that combination that makes it very, in my opinion, very complex. But that's going to be probably the biggest challenge that we are going to get in the coming month and the coming years, is to get feeling. Well, I'm recruiting a lot of junior coming out of schools, and it's good, right? So they understand what an IP address is. But then this is when the journey starts, right? So, and that's a very complex,
so in-house training
activity.
Is always necessary.
You learn on the job, right?
Yeah. Any one last question maybe for the panelists? No? It was, yeah, heavy, light. So guys, what I've retained is 3 points. Get insurance, okay? Train your people, and prepare your reaction, because you're going to have to react at one point in time. And whatever you do, remember the quote of Andrew Groove, who is the CEO of Intel. He wrote a book about it. It's called "Only the Paranoiads Survive." So thank you for that. Big applause for the panel, please.